has made a post about. Let's read this. Great news. Now next hit always misses. So first, let's talk about what next hit always misses is. This is for any character in the game, any attack, whether it's a spell attack, whether it's a physical attack, whatever it is. If I have a character, let's just grab
a gift for you.
This person.
Thank you so much for this time. Made me go back to D2 for real.
Thank you, Dai. If I have this character and I try and swing and I get hit and put into hit recovery, I'm not losing enough life to really go into hit recovery, unfortunately, there. But if I'm swinging at a monster or casting a spell or whatever it is, and a monster hits me and puts me into an animation, hit recovery, or even like a dodge, avoid, evade him, or whatever animation, any animation like that, the next hit I attempt or the next spell cast I attempt will fail. And you see this happen with sorceresses a lot, where like she'll be like a Nova source or something, and she'll cast a Nova after she gets hit, and the Nova goes off, the animation goes through, but nothing gets hit by it, right? I just realized this character doesn't really have Nova. But nothing gets hit by the Nova. So that's where you'll notice it.
Fend will be viable pog.
And yeah, so it screws a bunch of skills and things like that over, because it can just wreck like your Zealot. It can wreck, I mean, it can just ruin a lot of things. So that's what it is. And it's literally for anything in the game, and it makes melee a lot worse and some other stuff. So we asked them to fix it, and they said no at first, but now here is Pez's report on it. He says, so next hit always misses. This is an interesting one. I know Rod chimed in briefly, but I have some further details on why it works in a specific way. Depending on how you look at it, we didn't touch it, but in another way we fixed it. Interesting. Let me explain what D2 Legacy does and what you see as a player and why it's perceived as a bug. There are two places where logic is happening when you play D2. One is the client, that is your computer, and the other is the server, that's our computers here. When you play with other players, they are doing things on their client and updating the server as well. The server sorts it all out and sends information back to everyone. When the information on one of them is different than the other, we call that a desync. Good example of this when you're standing on spot and the server thinks you're in another. This causes the rubber banding when you snap back to a spot where both locations are the same. This is why you tend to see rubber banding more if you have a poor connection versus a strong one. As we modernize D2 Legacy for D2R, we did a lot of work to keep our desyncs to a minimum. One other example of a desync is when a player that is doing something, i.e. teleport to Frost Nova, takes a hit. On the client, the player starts playing the animation. Attacks and other abilities don't actually occur on the first frame of animation. They occur at a later point in time. With the teleport, you'll start to see the lightning form, but the actual translocation of your character doesn't occur till later in the animation cycle. If you were to get hit while you were playing that animation, you would get knocked out of the ability and it would be cancelled, which is true. In D2 Legacy, it was common for you to see the animation continue for much longer than it should have. This then caused it to look like your next ability missed, because what the client saw and what the server saw were two different things. The client would then reject any successful abilities because it knew you were still in the get hit state. However, as a player, the client had become desync and let the animation continue. This would then make it look like your teleport went off or your Frost Nova fired off, but nothing really happened. This next hit always miss bug, people are seeing it slightly tied to the example above, is your next attack's next skill's reaction just wouldn't work. The reason that occurred in detail is that you would act on your client, but the server was still in hit recovery and it rejected and ignored the command. D2R has made significant improvements, so if the player now sees what the client's been doing all those years much more accurately. So when you take a hit on client and are still taking a hit on the server, you'll see the same thing in both places. Logic is still the same as it always has been, but now we have fixed it how it's being shown on the client. I think feedback post-launch is important. And everything regarded, as Rod mentioned, we'll continue monitoring feedback, blah, blah, blah. Sorry for lengthy posts. Fascinating. So, but this doesn't actually solve it, because it exists in single player as well. Yeah, what this guy says right here. This is also present in single player offline games. So I don't think it's actually fixed. It seems like there are times online where it's not actually next hit always misses bug, but just a desync bug. But next hit always misses occurs in offline play as well, where you're not having any connection to the server whatsoever. So I think I'm going to have to talk to Pez on that one. Because I think they're thinking it's a different issue than it is. It looks very similar, right? It looks very similar, but I don't believe that's actually the correct next hit always misses that they think they're fixing. That is resolving a delay, a desync in the game. So, yeah. That being said, the Trapsin bug is now being fixed and included in day 1 patch. Rejoice for Trapsins everywhere. Now, what is this bug? This made magic finding on a Trapsin so much worse. Basically, having to spawn the entire zone before laying traps so we actually get champions is kind of game breaking. So what would happen is, if you're a Trapsin and you go into a zone and lay traps down, you'll get less champions, unique bosses and champion groups in that area, because it's going to, it counts your traps as like champion packs. And so it counts them as a champion pack. So it says, oh, the area already has some, and it doesn't spawn as many. So it just ruined her for Magic Find. Like, Trapsin was just a terrible Magic Finding character because of that. It was such a strange bug. So they say they fixed that, which is really good news. So good news right there. And I guess technically good news for like desync fixing here. I mean, like, if they're not seeing the desync from all of this stuff happening, then that's still good. But this isn't next hit always misses. This is not that bug. This is a different bug. First Trapsin on my tier list now. I mean, she's still not the greatest magic finding character. Just because she takes time to set up her traps, let them shoot off, let them blow up. Like, it's a lot faster, just like joom joom blizzard, joom 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 lightning, right? Like, just hit them immediately instead of kind of running to set the traps in the areas. That being said, she does a decent amount of damage and is still pretty strong. I mean, I'd push her up to a high B tier. Low A, high B. Yeah, she's very safe and everything. Great for that. So, anyways. Yeah. Good and bad news. More to discuss for sure there.